We're back with round 2 of the Sunday Scrum. There is a magic number all major parties are keenly aware of in the lead up to a federal election. The number of seats a party needs to form a majority government. That number is now 170. Remember, there will be 30 new federal ridings this time for a total of 338. Eric Grenier is founder of 308.com. It's a website dedicated to political polling in Canada. He took an aggregate of the most recent polls to figure out how many votes in each region each party would need to win a majority. He says the Conservatives would have the easiest time reaching that number. Though their support has shifted, dropping in BC and Atlantic Canada and rising in Quebec. So the Conservatives would need 20 seats in BC, 50 in Alberta, the Prairies and the North, 70 in Ontario, 20 in Quebec, and 10 in Atlantic Canada. The Liberals would need 20 seats in BC, 15 in Alberta, the Prairies and the North, and then Ontario and Quebec are key. They'd need 75 in Ontario, 35 in Quebec, and 25 in Atlantic Canada to reach that magic number. And they need the NDP to fall below 50 seats. The New Democrats have a tougher fight on their hands. They need 25 seats in BC, 15 in Alberta, the Prairies and the North, 55 in Ontario, and then Quebec becomes key, needing 65 seats in that province and 10 in Atlantic Canada.
No, just forget it.
All right. So, did you follow all of that?
Yeah. I hate board games, Andrew. What are you
Especially
doing
on
to
a Sunday morning. We're having a little bit of fun there. All right. So, Susan Riley, Rosemary, Barton in Ottawa, Martin Patriquin in Montreal. Okay. So, Rosie, I know that the parties kind of crunch these numbers all the time, right?
Sure,
I mean, they're probably spending a lot of time. I mean, we spend a lot of time putting that pretty graphic together, but they're spending even more time trying to figure out how to get to that magic 170 number. What are you hearing?
Yeah, and what you can play a board game right now if you want. Get your map out at home, and every time you see the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, or Tom Mulcair in a riding, put a pin there, because there's a reason why they're going there. You know, you saw the Prime Minister in Mississauga on Friday. Tom Mulcair has been in and around Toronto over the past couple of days as well. I'm not exactly sure where Justin Trudeau is right now.
Chinese community.
Oh yes, he was also in the Toronto area. So they are going to strategic places right now. They are going to places where they need to shore up this kind of support. They are well aware of those numbers. I read that column that Eric did for us with great interest, because it's important to get a sort of a broad understanding of where they need to get the seats and where they need to get their support. But the most interesting thing to me personally was it is going to be very hard for any of them at this stage to get a majority. That's what he was suggesting, right? That majority territory is not easily within anyone's reach right now. The second thing that I find fascinating, and Marty has alluded to it, is what is going on with the Conservatives in Quebec. I mean, he suggested 10 to 15 seats for the Conservatives in Quebec.
They have 5, right?
Yeah, they have 5. And their last big breakthrough was in 2008, and they got 10. And then it sort of went, and then they just sort of left Quebec alone for a while. And something weird is happening there right now, and they are trying to take advantage of it. I think that number is huge personally, but so fascinating to watch that unfold.
Since you brought it up, Rosie, Marty, does that get back to our earlier conversation about the anti-terror legislation? We talked about it last week, Stephen Harper in Victoriaville saying that women shouldn't be wearing niqabs during citizenship ceremonies. So is there something going on here where the Conservative support is actually increasing?
For sure, and if you do what Rosie suggested there by putting a pin where they want to gain seats, he went to Victoriaville, he went to Quebec City, he went twice to Montreal. Now, if the Conservatives can get someone on the island of Montreal, that would be a huge feat for them, because they've obviously not been able to do that the whole time.
Go ahead.
That's just, and again, it comes back to that context change. You know, the Ottawa attacks, the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and the business about kneecaps at citizenship ceremonies has been political, not to sound too cynical, has been political gold for the Conservatives.
Wouldn't that be incredible if the road to a majority for the Conservatives was actually through Quebec? I mean, that would be
but
something.
it's not going to happen,
Andrew.
Yeah. Andrew, it's not going to happen. because the terrorism business is not going to keep this hot. You know, we're talking about October. We're talking about the far distant future. We think October, but I'm sticking with October. Far distant future. So that's not going to hold. Number two, people's opinions change all the time. You remember, Marty, there was a big swell of support for the Charter of Values before the last election in Quebec, and that sort of went down in flames along with Pauline Marois. Now,
the only
there's
thing
residual. Yes.
The only thing I would say about that is that I think the Pierre Carpelado fist in the air sovereignty was what sunk Marois.
Yes.
And Charter of Values, yes, certainly probably didn't help Marois, but the instances, the wounds are still there. I was talking to Nathalie Roy from the CAQ the other day, and you know, she was saying basically the whole reasonable accommodations debate isn't settled. We've been having the same conversation for the last 10 years, and if Stephen Harper can come in and say, look, I sort of provide a way out of that to provide an answer, that person is gonna do well politically.
What about Ontario,
so there's
though?
residual
Maybe we should talk.
support. Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about Ontario, right?
Okay.
Though, because you know, I mean, that's the province with the most seats. And as Rosie, you were mentioning, the leaders do spend a lot of time, especially in the area around where I live, in the Greater Toronto area, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole belt, the 905 belt around Toronto, and then a little bit further down, you know, into Windsor and Hamilton and those areas. Those are going to be hard-fought battles in the next election, and that's why parties spend so much time in and around Toronto, because there's a lot of seats there and a lot of important seats that they need to get in order to push themselves forward. And just as we're talking, and I also am a believer that the election's happening in October, but let's just say, you know, you're Stephen Harper and you're looking at these kinds of numbers and your own internal polling, and you're seeing that people are liking the things you're doing. Your budget is coming in April. I mean, you have to wonder if he doesn't get a little bit tempted, right? Because as Susan points out, things change very quickly. And if you suddenly see that you have the potential to pick up some seats in Quebec, hold your seats in Ontario, and make a real run for some seats in British Columbia, I mean, is that enough to tempt you into taking a chance?
But
going
can I
early?
just boldly declare that he's not going to win the next election?
Oh,
What? Really?
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to. I don't think it matters. I mean,
We have it on tape, everyone.
Yes, please. I don't think he's going to win. I think that the time is up. The shelf life is finished.
Possible.
It's gone.
all right.
So, it
So
almost
who's
doesn't matter.
gonna win? If
Well,
you're-
that's not fair. I can't tell you everything.
Oh, come on.
Rosie, over to you. Who's going to win?
I don't play that game. I don't play that game at all.
Andrew, if I could just say one thing, if you look at Granier's numbers, and I think it was a very good point. The campaign's going to matter a lot, whether it's in October or tomorrow afternoon. The way that the leaders' campaign is going to be very, very important.
All right. Well, you know what else is important? Underwear. Underwear is important. Okay.
Pat, what are you doing?
To the lighter side of politics this hour, take a listen to this.
I realized I did inadvertently leave my seat briefly in the middle of the debate. I can blame it on a sale that was out down at the Hudson's Bay. They had men's underwear on for half price, and I bought a bunch that was clearly too small for me, and I find it difficult to sit for any length of time, Mr. Speaker. So I apologize if it was necessary for me to leave my seat briefly, but I did not mean to forfeit my right to vote.
Rosie, what is going on? What? Like, help me here. What is going on?
Yeah, I was actually in the foyer when that happened, and I started to get crazy emails from MPs who were in there saying, Pat Martin just brought down the house. It was so funny. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Underwear anyway. First of all, he wasn't telling the truth, right? It was hysterically funny, but it was also a made-up story in order for him to be able to get his vote counted. So this is what politics has come to. You have to make up crazy stories about your underwear being too small in order to justify the fact that you happen to be out of your seat for voting. In a serious conversation, maybe we need to have a conversation about how you're allowed to vote. In a non-serious conversation, Pat Martin is the ultimate showman, and he got worldwide attention, like in British newspapers, about his small gitch.
Really?
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I think we should put all this behind us, quite frankly. I really think the store of puns has really hit bottom. I mean, it's Pat Martin's entertaining. Some people will find him vulgar. But he's entertaining.
Marty, you don't even want to go there, do you? You're just
look, I just hope Pat's funny once in a while, and I just hope he keeps it to that. And also, I'd like to say, if I want to use that as an excuse, if I'm ever on live TV and I really screw up, I want to say, well, there's a sale down at Hudson's Bay, and I'm having a little trouble sitting in this seat right now.
It was just way too much information.
It really was.
Like, Canadians, we don't want to know this much about our politicians.
No, we
Definitely
really don't.
not.
We don't want to know whether they're
Keep it to
wearing the
yourself.
appropriately sized underwear. No one wants to know that.
No.
But this was
I
a
also
pleasure.
don't want to know that he shops at Hudson's Bay.
No,
personally.
yeah. Why do you need to know
We're
that?
all
need to
very
know that.
comfortable, though. We're all very comfortable today.
Yeah, exactly.
This
all
was
you
great,
need to know.
as always. Martin Patriquin, Maclean's Magazine in Montreal. Thank you to CBC's Rosemary Barton and freelance columnist Susan Riley. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Andrew.